Small enough for children, windowless, low-roofed. Storage buildings designed not for goods, but for human cargo. Dublin's Norse rulers did not only plunder gold and silver, they plundered bodies. A captured wife ceased to be a person, she became inventory. In the markets, her value was calculated without emotion. 20 silver for a young woman, 15 for a mother, 10 if she was injured during capture. These prices are not speculation. They are carved into runic inscriptions in Schleswig, receipts etched in stone, and yet being sold was sometimes the best possible fate. In 862, Viking forces stormed the settlement of Port Maro. Irish annals record 47 warriors killed and say nothing about the 53 women taken from the longhouses. The bogs nearby tell the rest. Soil tests uncovered 23 female bodies, all bearing signs of deliberate violence. These were not chaotic deaths. The injuries followed patterns: skulls fractured from behind, forearms shattered in defense, ribs broken by prolonged assault. These were not battle casualties. They were executions, carried out days after the raid, after decisions had been made. The pattern repeats. In 871, the great heathen army captured Reading. Chroniclers describe King Ethelred's defeat, but remain silent about the royal women. Excavations at the old Saxon palace speak instead. Stone floors stained with iron oxide. Blood residue, enough for dozens of deaths. Norse war culture had laws, strict ones. If a warrior was slain, his wife became the lawful property of his killer. Not a servant, a forced wife. The Old Norse word was kona, an owned woman, property that breathes. Icelandic law codes describe the ritual precisely. The captor declared ownership before witnesses. The woman had no choice, no voice, no escape. The marriage was legal. Any children born were legitimate. The assault was not merely tolerated, it was written into law. The Gragas law codes were explicit. The claim had to be made within 3 days of capture, or rivals could contest it. Women were fought over like livestock, and forced marriage was not even the worst fate. In 878, Norse raiders destroyed the monastery at Bangor. The annals record its annihilation, but omit what followed. Burn layers at similar sites reveal the truth. Bone fragments of women arranged in deliberate patterns. Norse funerary law demanded sacrifice. When a warrior died, so did his horses, his weapons, and his women. In 921, Ibn Fadlan witnessed such a funeral on the Volga. A slave girl was raped, then killed at her master's burial. Archaeology confirms this was no isolated ritual. Boat burials across Scandinavia contain female skeletons with strangulation marks, drug residues, henbane, embedded in teeth. They were subdued before death, dazed, hallucinating, compliant. Perhaps it dulled the terror, or perhaps it made it worse. By 873, the Great Army wintered at Thetford. Chronicles mention cattle stolen and churches burned. They say nothing of what happened inside the camp. The rubbish pits speak instead. Infant bones, dozens, blunt force trauma. Not stillbirths, murders. Viking law was clear. If the mother was a slave, the child was a slave. If the child could not work, the child was killed. Brutal economics. The Domesday Book later records the practice continuing under Norman rule. Population studies in Yorkshire show sudden gaps exactly where the Norse settlements stood. The bones at Repton confirm it. The Great Army's camp of 873 to 874 contained skeletons. Only 63 were women. Women do not vanish unless they are carried away. Isotope analysis proves the truth. The women were not local, they came from Ireland, Scotland, Wales. Those buried were the fortunate ones, dead from childbirth or disease. The rest disappeared into the slave routes. Viking Dublin was not just a port, it was a hub of human trafficking. Weekly ships arrived with fresh captives. Women were sorted by age. The young sent to Norse farms as breeding stock. The older shipped east into Islamic slave markets along the Russian rivers. Dendrochronology, the study of tree rings, reveals the scale. Dublin's waterfront was rebuilt continuously from 841 to 970, over 60 years of expansion, not for fishing, not for fur, for slavery. Warehouses built of stone, designed to hold 200 captives at once. Drainage channels cut into floors not for rain, but for human waste. These were not temporary holding pens. They were long-term storage facilities, human stockrooms. Arabic chroniclers of the 9th century describe Viking slave caravans reaching Baghdad. Women fetched premium prices, pale-skinned captives were treated as rare luxuries, displayed like exotic goods. The Vikings understood their buyers and supplied them with ruthless efficiency. The eastern slave route stretched over 1,000 miles, through Novgorod and Kiev down the Dnieper. Rune-carved ship manifests list slaves alongside amber and furs. About 20 women per ship. Standard cargo. But captivity was not the worst fate, nor was forced marriage, nor ritual sacrifice. The most terrifying fate awaited those who resisted. In 914, Irish forces retook Dublin. The annals celebrate victory. They say nothing about what was found outside the walls. Archaeology fills the silence, punishment pits, stone-lined holes designed for slow death. Inside, women with legs broken to prevent escape, arms shattered to prevent suicide. They were not killed quickly. They were kept alive to suffer. Each pit was 6 feet deep, too narrow to lie flat, too shallow to stand. Victims died crouched in agony over days, sometimes weeks. Viking law codes confirmed the punishment. Any slave woman who harmed her master was to be buried alive, but never sealed. Enough air to breathe, not enough to live. Soil layers confirm prolonged death. Some pits contained sharp stones to tear flesh. Others held standing water to drown slowly. The goal was not death. It was instruction. Other captives were forced to watch. Defiance had consequences. By 919, Norse civil wars ended. Expansion slowed. The slave economy did not. It became organized. People were delivered on schedules. Merchants promised delivery dates for human beings. Byzantine trade records preserved the details. The Rus-Byzantine Treaty of 944 lists slave prices by category. Young women commanded the highest value. Pregnant women sold at a discount. Children under 10 were nearly worthless. The market had rules. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to share your thoughts in the comments, like and share it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so we can bring more such insightful and informative videos to you. Remember, the joy of spreading knowledge is best when we're all together. Supply chains, predictable profit. In 937, the last great Viking invasion of Ireland ended at Brunanburh. The victory was decisive. What they found afterward was worse. Portable breeding pens, engineered cages with iron fittings, chains sized for children, modular frames, assembled and dismantled for travel, mobile slave markets that marched with the army. Each pen held a dozen adults or 20 children. Wear marks proved constant use. This was not random cruelty. It was logistics. For the Vikings, war was not only conquest, it was harvesting people. Women were not collateral damage. They were the objective, captured, processed, distributed. Every Norse settlement had holding pens, every harbour had processing sites. The system was everywhere. In 954, Eric Bloodaxe fell. The last Viking kingdom in England collapsed. The slave networks did not. They were absorbed. Christian rulers inherited them and renamed them. Monastic records suddenly describe indentured servants in massive numbers. These were not contracts. They were the same women. Slavery rebranded. In 1066, Harold Hardrada died at Stamford Bridge. The Viking Age ended. Archaeology reveals what the chronicles hide. Mass graves of women, dated to Viking defeats, executed, erased. At Repton, a sealed grave dated 986 was uncovered. 236 bodies, all female. Blunt force trauma, strangulation, poisoning. Isotope testing revealed the truth. These were not captives, they were Norse-born, the Vikings' own wives, their daughters. They knew exactly what awaited them, and they chose death over capture. Thank you for watching.